We're live. So, I actually just tried to start recording and little tangent. Apologies. Said my output folder wasn't working. So I go to settings and I try to put the output in the same folder again. It says there's a problem with the drive. Open up my file explorer. Try to hit up my external D drive. Says that shit's bunk, bro. I said, And Windows error pops up, says, hey, you want us to scan it? We'll fix it. And I say, sure, Windows, you'll fix it. I let it scan. It says it'll repair it. 45 seconds later, it's repaired. Everything's still on it. So who the fuck knows? I tried unplugging it, plugging it back in. That didn't work. I don't know what Windows did, but they did it. Shout out. Anyway, real topic. I love Harpies. Okay? Stay with me here. Harpies, the concept of, I really enjoy as monsters in D&D. I enjoy them in the same sense that a lot of dungeon masters enjoy goblins or gnolls, whereas like these things are humanoid and inherently probably could be civilized, but are generally treated as a monstrous race with very, very rare exceptions to being friendly or playable to characters. Now, I recently ran Harpies in my Search for Knowledge game, and I have come away enjoying a different take on Harpies from base 5e. These can be found if you just Google WoW 5e, World of Warcraft 5e rulebook. It's on Reddit. It's free. You can find it. In here is a rendition of a World of Warcraft Harpy, which you will notice doesn't have an alluring song or charm. And that's kind of the way I prefer it. There's an optional rule for it to have access to innate charm person for certain Harpies if you want to like differentiate them. But I opted out of that. I want my Harpies to be not inherently preying onto humanoids. I want them to be a little more monstrous, a little more wild, where they tend to get their food from killing shit in flocks and overwhelming it with claws and their poisons and screeching. Now, it made me realize that I've never really looked up the 5e Harpies. So I actually did. And got a few notes. Both challenge rating 1. These are both intended for a 1-to-1 CR. Same movement. This thing has 78 plus 7 hit points. If you know what CR is, generally speaking, it is equivalent to total party level. So, if you were to have this 1v1 another 5e character, a level 1 5e character, I'd wager that it would probably kill them even if the player is able to not get charmed and hit all their attacks just by sheer proxy of the hit point deficit. 78 plus 7? Why? I don't get it. I don't understand it all. That's my first gripe. These Harpies, they're a lot more fragile, and I think that helps make sense as to why they would work in groups, or at least in pairs, is because on their own they can kind of just be taken down because they're effectively a frail human/elf with wings and talons and claws. This works way better. In 5e, they like to use this bulkier type of Harpy, where they have wings on the back and claws and legs independently from the wings, like not attached bat-like, like the Harpies in World of Warcraft do. Much prefer the way they are in World of Warcraft. These ones fit better with being bulky. That 38 hit points makes a whole lot more sense for this creature, not so much for this creature. What is this? How did I group this? I don't know. But that's kind of a lot for 1 CR. Like, typically characters and creatures that are 1 CR tend to be kind of glass cannon-y, where it's like 1 or 2 good hits against another creature of 1 CR or 1 player level will probably knock them down. And sure, with this Harpy, they have to make 2 attacks, so there's increased odds of them missing. But I feel like that's not enough to make up for how much stronger in a duel this thing can be. And that's not even mentioning the song. Basically, 300-foot circle around the Harpy, humanoids and giants that can hear it have to make a save. DC 11, Wisdom. Easy. Everybody knows Wisdom isn't a dump stat. Furthermore, to continue the singing, they have to use their bonus action, which is kind of a whatever thing, because, like, what other bonus action do they really have? They have multi-attack? Whatever. While they're charmed, they're effectively incapacitated. And move towards the Harpy. I've seen a few different iterations of this where Harpies will get an extra attack if they get within melee range of you while you're charmed, or just get to fucking murk you straight up if you're charmed and are able to walk all the way up to them 5 feet at a time. I don't like it, and that's coming from a person who kind of likes bullshit saber die mechanics. Like, I think it adds a lot of tension, but I don't think level 1 is really the point, because how this is worded at the very end: a target that successfully saves is immune to this Harpy's song for the next 24 hours. So if you have 3 Harpies, let's say you have 3 level 1 players, you have 3 Harpies, they all start singing at once. They can't be affected by more than 1 at a time, but they each have to save against all 3. If they fail 1, then they're dropped. A DC 11 save at level 1, or maybe you have a +2 in it, so you have to roll a 9 or better, doesn't seem so bad until, you gotta beat that 45% odds. You gotta make a 55% chance, 55% chance, 55% chance. It's getting a little dicey. And I found that the kind Redditors have made a alteration to this, which I like a whole lot more. Harpies in this have the incapacitating screech. Instead of having 2 attacks where they have double the chance to miss, they make 1 attack. It does 2d6 plus 2 slashing, and it does 1d4 poison damage. Easy peasy. I like when there is inclusion of poison damage as well, because that is a resistance some players can actually kind of get. I think if you have toxicology, something, another, I don't exactly remember. I don't get to play games as players very often. Poison damage is something that is really only super a factor when it's really early levels like this, which I enjoy, or it's really late levels where it's a giant spider and they bite you and you take 12d8 poison damage. I like both of them. And I always love to see poison damage thrown in early too, especially since there are spells that clerics have to work with poison, which I think is a mechanic that is kind of underutilized in 5e. Tangent aside, incapacitating screech. They make the save. If they fail, they're incapacitated until the end of the Harpies' turn. Their multi-attack is that they can make the Talon attack and the incapacitating Screech. But the incapacitating Screech has a 6-round recharge, which effectively means that they can use it once per combat. I love it. Big fan. Because in that way you don't have to worry about there being 3 Harpies, one flying away to sing, and then if all 3 of your players succeed, another one just starts singing, and hopefully it'll get all 3 of you, and maybe 2 of your players succeed, and then the other one will start to sing, and then maybe only 1 of your players will succeed. So you have 1 active participant, and the other one, the Harpy that sang in the first place and got nobody, comes back and starts ripping people up. It's a lot on just us. You're segmenting your players to where you point and you say you cannot play the game until X player is able to stop this. And I think the incapacitating Screech, where just Screech for 1 turn, is great. Especially since it makes sense for if you have multiple of these Harpies, they'll all dive in and try to get the biggest clump of players, and they'll screech after their attack. And then if not all the players are affected, maybe they'll dive into a more opportune position and make their attack and screech again. And sure, hypothetically, there will be 1 turn where maybe all of your players fail and they're all incapacitated. But that's okay, because they won't be incapacitated again for the rest of the combat. And you may be wondering, incapacitated? I would never allow my players to be crit by these damned Harpies on the immediate turn following. It's so broken. Incapacitation is not like being downed where you're crit. You just can't take actions or reactions. Basically, you lose your turn. I guess you can use your bonus actions. Such a weird rule. There is something I like about these as well, even more so. First, they have dive attack. It just makes sense. This is a great mechanic. This is on a lot of these flying creatures in this Warcraft monster manual. Dive attack. When they fly down at least 30 feet towards a target in a straight line, not ziggy-zaggy, they get to deal an extra d6 of damage. It's great. And if they want to fly away and do it again, then they have to take an opportunity attack. Usually not very worth for them. This is great. I love this because it really front loads the Harpies, and it really incentivizes your players if they get into encounter with them and then fight them for an extended period of time. Maybe the Harpies run away, maybe the Harpies down one of them, maybe they just kill most of the Harpies and the other one gets away. But if there's a whole nest of them, the players will know, okay, we have to spread out and just survive the first round. That's all we got to do. Blade Ward, Armor of Agaths, I think it's Agaths, shit like that. You just have to survive this initial burst, which is probably when the Harpies, Harpy sees a wolf or something roaming about. Harpy comes down, dive attacks it, that doesn't kill it, they screech it and then kill it. It makes sense for their hunting strategies and what they want to do. It makes a lot more sense for these kind of front-loaded assassin, roguish almost, where it's like they're the explosion when they get in, and then they slowly start to taper off in actual economy of the game. Economy that they're still able to not taper off as slowly with, thanks to their talons being that 2d6 plus 2 plus a d4 for poison. They remain competitive while not feeling like they are outclassing the players. Another thing I'm a little confused how to feel about is Poisonous Kiss. This is if the Harpy kisses a humanoid on the lips, targets must succeed a DC 11 con save or be poisoned for 1d4 hours. While poisoned in this way, the target also has disadvantage on wisdom saving throws. Poison gives you disadvantage on hit rolls and ability checks, and it's just a weird thing. I think it's one of those flavor things where if for some reason your players kiss a harpy, then something will happen, because there should probably be a deficit to kissing a harpy. I think it's also built in to work innately with the charm person one. But then again, I'm pretty sure charm person just makes them a trusted friend. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for it to be, I charmed you, now kiss me. I don't know. Maybe it makes it easier for the harpy to force themselves onto you, which I don't really like. I think maybe it's some niche World of Warcraft ability reference or relation to something that I'm just not familiar with. But I feel like it's mostly a roleplay spell. I did try to use it against one of my players who was offered the choice of kissing one. They accepted, as per was a deal they were attempting to make. Succeeded the con save, yada yada. That basically didn't matter. I like when things don't have a clear purpose. It's one of those weird things that I think the subject matter is a little weird of, because these harpies are not innately like the beguiling type. Maybe it's supposed to save space for the beguiling harpy variant. These harpies also speak Darnassian, which is the language of the Night Elves, and Low Common. So these harpies can have a little more variety of conversation. I ruled it that they would probably be a little more lenient, or maybe even more hateful towards Night Elves, which are the creatures these things have evolved/devolved adjacent to. These things are, simplistically said, they're effectively Night Elf models with talons and wings and shit. They're super cool. I love them. But they are tied to the world, and you can tell that purely by the fact that they are generally portrayed as attractive elven nature. I don't want to say deity. I don't want to say critter either. Almost like a shaman, one could say, that was like spawned from the dream or nature, etc. In World of Warcraft, Aviana is the mother of Harpies, and while she is a good aligned creature, Harpies are independent of their creator. They are wild. They are untamed. They act as nature wills, and Aviana is, well, I don't want to speak for Aviana yet. I don't want to make any decisions on behalf of what my lore of Aviana will be. The way I see it is that Aviana bore these creatures effectively and let them be free, the same way that a wolf might be free and attack caravanners or, people on the road, or get a disease and spread it, etc. Like, the freedom of nature is to succeed and to fail, to grow and to wilt. The Harpy Witch, I really enjoy. So they have the dive attack too, they have the poisonous kiss, they have spell casting. Now, usually what I see when I see these spellcasting things, I think the way it's supposed to be read is that you have one of each spell listed, but I don't tend to run it like that. I tend to pick what the creatures most likely desire each day, and if I was a Harpy Witch, I'm taking 2 lightning bolts every single day, and there's nothing nobody can do to stop me. Because maybe if I was like constantly being assaulted by adventurers trying to shoot me with arrows, I would take Windwall, but I feel like for a lot of Harpies, they intentionally build their roosts, because remember, these are not beguiling Harpies. They intentionally have their roosts farther away from civilization and such like that. So if your main method of eating is hunting plain striders and wargs and cougars and hyenas and shit, what good's Windwall going to do? You're gonna lightning bolt them. You're gonna fucking fry them. They're cooked to perfection, and now you start feasting down with your harpy gals. It's easy peasy. And these harpy witches, although not something I took use of, because lightning bolts is a very wonderful spell, these harpies can throw down. They got the incapacitating screech as well. They got the talons. Same dealio. They do an extra +1 on their slashing, and they have an extra +1 to hit. But they can use an incapacitating screech, make 2 talon attacks or 1 talon and a prepared cantrip, which could be lightning blast, not lightning bolt, thunderclap, or gust. This really helps incentivize the harpies all in at the start nature and then slowly start to taper off. Because let's say you got 3 lightning bolts. If you can survive those first 2 turns where they got lightning bolt, their pressure is going to fall significantly. Are they going to be weak? No, definitely not considered weak. But they're going to lightning bolt you, and then if they need to play at range, they'll lightning blast you, which will suck for their econ because they only get 1 spell off. Or if they want to just get in there and start fucking raking at you, they get in there and make their talon attack and their thunderclap. It's great. They have the absorb element spell, so that if they're getting pecked at by elemental-based weaponry or spells, they can negate it and be able to retain in their high ground effectively, where they're able to benefit the most from being in. Because marshals can't hit you when you're 30 feet up in the air unless they have a bow and arrow, and a lot of marshals don't, just carry a bow and arrow. Usually they'll be like, I'm the barbarian with an axe, and I only have the axe, and they don't take a crossbow or a bow or, whatever. I love what this is all about. Fairly high DC, but not enough to be unwinnable against. A DC 13 is somewhat high, but remember the Harpy Witches are intended for CR3. This is probably the boss you put at the end, or the deepest part of the Harpy Roost for the players to fight, implying they're on a quest to go clear out a half dozen harpies with a witch. This CR3 monster has but only 12 HP more than the CR1 Harpy in base 5e. Just wanted to mention that. Overall, I believe that the Harpies within this manual are flavored significantly better, at least to my standards. And although I do not believe these Harpies do not have a place, I would much prefer to run a Siren, which, surprisingly enough, I looked up, doesn't have a 5e counterpart. I typically associate Sirens more so with luring in people to their death and then feasting on them. Makes a little more sense, especially since in the lore of a world where sirens exist, it would make sense for you to not hear about them because, it would make sense for you not to believe in them because, they're out in the sea. They're out, where the fuck ever. Sometimes they're on beaches and coasts, and sometimes they can be civilized, rarely, sometimes. Generally speaking, these are monstrous creatures, and I think it makes more sense for an aquatic humanoid like that, especially with the relation to real world merfolk and kind of just merfolk, I guess. It makes a lot more sense for those to be what I would classify as being able to be beguiling or charming, especially since I like the idea of people not believing sailors. Jimbo leapt off the ship when he heard this song, and because he said he saw a beautiful woman out on the rocks. People could just be like, yeah, Jimbo's been working on the boats for 28 years. He finally fucking lost it and had enough. He's been missing his wife back in Port Austin, and he hasn't seen her for 12 years. Of course he just got out of there. If I was Jimbo, never. But, it makes sense. These are people who are out on ships for months, maybe even years at a time, barely being on land for more than a few days or weeks sometimes. It makes sense for these people to have this societal expectation that they're gonna go crazy and that these things out in the sea are just myth that sailors tell each other. Oh, you heard songs and one of you guys jumped off the ship. I'm sure one of you guys are jumping off the ship every week, man. You got a big ass boat. You're sharing like a triple bunk with dudes. It fucking sucks in there. All you guys do is drink all day. He was probably drunk. Maybe he fell overboard. The song was just whistling of the winds, etc. I like these Harpies more. And I like to go on tangents. And that's kind of what these videos are an outlet for, is for me to be able to tangent freely and yap. I think that's about all I really got to say. I really like these World of Warcraft Harpies. Yeah.